For example, the New York Times reported last year that Andrew Tate has been in calls on Zoom with Trump's youngest son, Barron Trump.
There's no role for us to play at this moment, or maybe ever, in that regard.
For years, Andrew Tate's public defense has basically had two parts. One, every criminal case against him is politically motivated, and two, eventually the connections he built in America wouldn't matter when things get serious. The Trump world, Republican politicians, the huge conservative podcasts, and people around the administration. Tate spent years making himself incredibly useful to that entire online political ecosystem, and now the moment has finally arrived where those connections could actually be tested. Except when the US Secretary of State was directly asked whether Washington was going to step in, his answer was basically, "This is a court problem, not ours," and that is probably the exact opposite of what Tate wanted to hear.
Mention me by name?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, look, that extraditions, I don't know the details of this particular case. I've been overseas, but I mean, I know who you're talking about. I just don't know the details of it. These cases have a process that they go through in the courts. My understanding is that they're involved in that judicial process. And so that'll play itself out at this point. And there's no role for us to play at this moment, or maybe ever, in that regard. But I'm not going to opine on something that's still working through a legal process.
And it was funny because before, Tate had a different interpretation. On a recent 3-hour podcast, he basically argues that Britain accidentally trapped itself. His theory is that the UK already requested his extradition from Romania. Romania approved that request, but only once the Romanian case is finished. And Tate claims Romania now has a financial reason to never officially close that case because he says they could owe him an enormous amount of money if it collapses. So according to Tate, Romania won't close the file, Britain can't take him until Romania closes the file, and therefore the whole thing can sit there forever. He basically describes it like he's checkmated two governments at the same time. The problem is, international extradition law is slightly more complicated than a Tate whiteboard.
I think the Brits are in a quagmire because, like Moby Dick, in their haste to get hold of me, they didn't quite understand the complexities of extradition and also the brutal inefficiency of Romanian law. Because the Brits tried to extradite me, and the warrant has been satisfied. I will be extradited when my Romanian case is complete. My Romanian case is on a prosecutor's desk. If the prosecutor closes the case, Romania owes me $1 billion. So it's in the prosecutor's interest to keep the case open on his desk, a case he can't fix, until he retires. Because if he closes it, they owe me $1 billion. And the UK can't get me as long as that case is open. The UK are pissed, calling the Romanians saying, close the case if you don't have a case. And the Romanians are saying, we're not saying we don't have a case, we're saying it's difficult to fix, but we're going to try because if they close it, they owe me $1 billion.
And honestly, if you think Tate's grand chess master explanation is nonsense, there is one part where the source gives him credit. Romania has handled this incredibly slowly. Tate has spent years moving between restrictions, court appearances, and investigations without reaching the clean final trial he constantly demands. Some earlier charges have run into legal problems, and now, instead of the situation finally wrapping up, Romanian authorities are preparing yet another file. So Tate's basically leaving in legal purgatory. Not convicted, not cleared, not finished, just permanently going back and forth while every country involved waits for somebody else to move first. And that actually might be worse for him than a quick answer because there is no obvious end date to the debacle.
So the UK, when James Altmaier wrote to them, were like, we can't technically do that legally because we've already tried to extradite him and the extradition warrant has been satisfied. So now what happens? When I fly around the world, like I was just in Hong Kong, is that the Foreign Office of the UK call the hotel and try and get me kicked out of the hotel. That's how petty and pathetic they are. The owner of the Rosewood Hong Kong, which is the top-ranked hotel in the world, by the way, #1, it won in 2026 the best hotel in the world. The owner of the hotel is a friend of mine. And he came to me and said, you will not believe the British government just called me and told me that you're a criminal and that you have an active extradition warrant out of Romania and that we should kick you out of this hotel. I said, the British government has time to call hotels and try and make me, I mean, what does that do? It doesn't extradite me. It just inconveniences me. I have to go get another hotel. They are spending government money trying to inconvenience me by getting me kicked out of hotels because they can't extradite me because the Romanians won't close the case because the Romanians owe me money because I haven't done anything.
Then we get into the new Romanian file. Authorities are looking at allegations involving dozens of people alongside serious financial exploitation claims. Tate obviously denies wrongdoing, and his response is basically the same one he's been giving for years. He argues that he keeps getting arrested, restricted, and marched into court, but never actually gets to trial where he can challenge the evidence properly. That's an important distinction. Being accused is not the same thing as being convicted, but the opposite is also true. Not having been convicted yet does not automatically prove every accusation is fake, and right now that gap is basically where his entire public image lives. But come on guys, I mean, we've seen evidence of this guy saying heinous things about women, so I think we know he's pretty guilty.
Girl A, I'm going to talk about her history in a minute. I go back to house arrest. And finally, because after these 3 years, I've never had a trial. I've never had a chance to present evidence or anything. I've never had a chance to say, oh, by the way, do you know girl A accused 10 other men of sexual assault? Do you know girl A accused her father of sexual assault? Do you know girl A is on psychiatric drugs? Do you know girl A has been sectioned? Do you know, I don't have a chance. I have the evidence, but I've never had a chance to present it.
What was that last part you said? Girl A has been
Sectioned.
What's that mean?
Taken to a mental institution against
wow.
her will.
Got it.
And this is where the whole situation becomes almost comically complicated. Romania still has proceedings, Britain wants to prosecute its own case, and now even the US is part of the picture as well. So even if everyone agreed Tate should face whatever cases are pending, you still have to decide who gets him first. There is one possible scenario where America extradites him to Britain, and then Romania asks Britain to send him back afterward. At that point, this stops being did one country issue a warrant, and becomes three governments trying to decide the legal order of operations, which is exactly why Tate can keep pointing at every delay and saying, see, they don't actually have anything, when realistically, multiple jurisdictions fighting over procedure can be slow even before you get anywhere near guilt or innocence.
A trial. I haven't beaten a trial. I haven't gone to trial and won. No, I've never been to trial ever. Every single nation state which came out with this garbage, which is pushed by George Soros funded NGOs, has attempted to find evidence to put me in jail. And they never, Romania, England, never found enough evidence to even get to trial. 6 years I've been waiting to prove my innocence, and I have never ever had a trial. What I've had is accusations. What I've had is Twitter detectives thinking they know more than judges.
And this is where politics finally enters the story properly. After Tate's arrest, prominent Republican voices reportedly started calling for Trump to get involved. Their argument was that Tate had faced the same political persecution that Trump had faced. So if Trump really believes this story, why wouldn't he help? Except the White House position is basically the opposite. They don't even want to touch the case. One US official reportedly said they have no involvement and no feelings about the case, which is brutal when you consider how much effort Tate put into building these relationships. He even put courses on networking because he knew these Republican people. Because politics is very useful unless you're generating votes and attention. It becomes much less useful when helping you creates legal and political risk for everyone involved.
And it turns out Kamala admits that we moved the fucking needle. That is a flex, bro. 2025, write it in stone, because they're going to delete everything off the internet. They're going to delete it all off Wikipedia. Write it in stone. Go to Mount Rushmore. Andrew Tate defeated Kamala Harris. He did it. Even though they were putting him in jail, locking him in his house. Guys, don't think when I go out of jail and I was in house arrest, I wasn't told to shut up. Andrew, if you shut up, if you don't say anything, this will all go away. Just wait for the election. Wait for Trump to lose. Wait for Kamala to win, and we'll let you off. All you have to do is sit and be quiet. We'll let you free from your house if you just live a quiet life. No, they raid my house again, drag me back to jail, still don't shut up, still fight back, still fuck you. They tried everything, unfazed, last bullet, kept going viral. Kamala Harris's whole campaign fucking failed. It failed because of me. I did it, me, and she admitted it. She admitted it in black and fucking white. I affected a presidential election. I did.
And Tate does not exactly undersell his importance here. Kamala Harris discussed figures like Tate supporting Trump, and Tate basically takes that as confirmation that he personally helped swing the election. He starts talking like he belongs on Mount Rushmore. According to Tate, even while he was under restrictions and investigations, he refused to stay quiet and kept pushing Trump. So in his mind, he helped the movement, he helped win the election, and therefore you can see why he might have expected some loyalty in return, except there is a pretty big difference between helping somebody politically and convincing the US government to interfere with multiple criminal proceedings involving allied countries, and that difference is now becoming painfully obvious. And then you get probably the funniest twist in this entire video. Sneako, somebody who used to be on good terms with Tate, is now basically roasting him for betting so heavily on Trump, and Sneako's argument is that Tate spent years refusing to seriously criticize Trump because deep down he thought that relationship might save him if extradition ever became real, and now the extradition problem is real and Washington has been asked directly and it seems like nobody's going to rush in. So Sneako looks at years of political loyalty and basically says, what did any of that actually buy you? And coming from somebody who used to sit in that same online political world, that criticism hits differently than another random Tate hater saying it.
The reason they did that, thank you for the sub 90, the reason that the Tates never criticized Trump is because deep down they were really hoping that Trump would go and save them if they got arrested and if they were called to be extradited to the United Kingdom. Well, look, it didn't work, stupid. Now you're arrested. Trump's not going to save you. All that twerking you did, all that begging you did. Look now. You thought that you could sacrifice your own religion, you could sell out your own people, your own faith, apparently. It didn't even work. Trump's not going to save you. All that slurping you did. They destroyed their reputation by throwing me under the bus, by saying they have tech teams in Israel. Sneako did it. Sneako played the song. Please don't arrest me. Well, now you got arrested, you stupid idiot. You refused to call out Trump, even though he's owned by Jewish supremacists, hoping that he would save you from your extradition to the UK, and he didn't. So you sold out, you destroyed your reputation, you sold out your faith, you threw me under the bus, and you still got arrested. Anybody still defending this too, now that there's charges of them holding indecent images of a child? I don't know what you have to say about, I don't know how you can keep credibility with them. I don't know if you think this is a Matrix attack. If it was a Matrix attack, wouldn't Elon Musk, the trillionaire, tied up with Mossad and Netanyahu and speaking to Netanyahu regularly by Netanyahu's admission, wouldn't Elon Musk be calling for Tate's deportation too?
But here's what makes the story interesting. Tate wasn't just tweeting at politicians and getting ignored. According to reporting, the brothers really did get surprisingly close to people in Trump's orbit. They spent time in Washington. They're reportedly hosted by people connected to Trump. They attended private events near the White House, and Donald Trump Jr. publicly criticized earlier charges against the brothers, and the New York Times reportedly said Andrew had even been on calls with Baron Trump. So this wasn't completely imaginary access, they had actual proximity, actual contacts, actual public supporters, which makes Marco Rubio saying there's no role for us even more significant, because apparently being close enough to get invited into the room is very different from being important enough for the government to intervene when the consequences arrive.
Because both Andrew and Tristan Tate have spent the last few years trying to build bonds with the Trump administration and even with members of President Donald Trump's own family. For example, the New York Times reported last year that Andrew Tate has been in calls on Zoom with Trump's youngest son, Barron Trump. Donald Trump Jr. also called the charges against the Tate brothers absolute insanity on the social media platform X. That's the original charges from a few years ago. It should be stressed that the two brothers strenuously deny all the charges against them, although they are now facing criminal investigations in both the United Kingdom and Romania. This is kind of a big test for the Trump administration because Donald Trump spent the last election campaign really courting the manosphere. He went on several manosphere-related podcasts with allies of the Tate brothers, and the Tate brothers have kind of boasted about this relationship with Donald Trump. And that's interesting because with this extradition procedure, the ultimate say-so whether they get extradited or not is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who of course works directly for Donald Trump. So this is really a huge test of this supposed relationship between Andrew Tate, the manosphere, and the administration of Donald Trump. So we're really going to be watching to see what happens.
And the list doesn't stop there. The evidence points to more people in Trump's political orbit who have supported or interacted with Tate. A former Trump lawyer told him she had his back. JD Vance reportedly follows both brothers online, and Tate has appeared with Candace Owens. He spent years building an American political safety net around himself, but when Tate returned to Florida, he says state officials opened another investigation and even contacted Britain asking whether they wanted him arrested and sent over, which is basically the opposite of a hero's welcome. Imagine spending years saying, "America understands me," then you finally land in America and somebody in the government is apparently asking Britain whether they want you delivered. I can understand why he sounds furious in this clip.
After I called out Elon Musk for platforming extremism, Tate's followers immediately descended on me with a flood of abuse and harassment. That was not random. That was a deliberate attempt to silence an elected representative. I was bombarded with death threats, rape jokes and abuse from accounts both local and international. Then, the Tate brothers themselves came after me. Two men running from the most serious criminal charges, propped up by the world's most powerful leaders. And they targeted me, an elected representative from Northern Ireland, for daring to speak my mind. Shocking. It wasn't even about them, it was about Musk. But it was a calculated attempt to silence an elected politician. I was, in their words, a nice target. A direct attack on democracy and this House itself. But this is not just about individuals. It is about democracy. We have seen a deliberate, organised effort to create an online environment where extremism flourishes, where intimidation becomes the norm, and where women, minorities and political opponents are driven out of public life.
And if the UK eventually gets Tate, this is probably the political environment he wants least, as in Britain, the MPs openly criticise him and they say stuff like he started a new wave of misogyny that appears in adolescents. Now, those political speeches don't prove the criminal allegations against Tate, but you know, I think he is pretty guilty. I mean, there's tons of evidence, but still, that is still for court, so allegedly, I'm not trying to get sued, but they show you the atmosphere he would be entering. Tate is not some obscure defendant in Britain. Politicians across parties have spent years arguing that his content is harmful. Schools have discussed him. His online influence has become part of national political debates. So if Washington really is staying out, there may genuinely be nobody politically powerful left who can make the British problem disappear for him. And nobody is coming to save Andrew Tate. Well, at least not right now. Maybe Trump might come back, but things look really dire for Tate, honestly. I mean, the evidence against him have just been piling on. It's lots of evidence, and I agree. I think he is guilty, but at the end of the day in court, there's still allegations. But I mean, in Britain, the climate, they hate him, and I mean, there's lots of evidence, and I think, you know, he's gonna get sentenced, and he's gonna be locked up for good, and he's gonna be touched in prison, I reckon. But anyways, guys, I love you, and make sure to subscribe. Mwah.